Recording in progress.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
It's very clear.
In a very weird way, I have my students behind me.
Hi.
Good morning. I have Dr. Realisa Masardi, that we call Lisa. She's from the Department of Anthropology. She's also lecturer in Masters, and she's from the University of Gadjah Mada in Jakarta, and she's living with a volcano in eruption right now, which is quite exciting. And I'm very glad that Lisa said to give a lecture for you guys, because she's the one with the most experience working with refugees, using creative methods. We've been trying to collaborate in different projects. I'm very glad that you have time to hear her. I'm sure she's going to share some interesting things. And I'm going to let her start and mute myself. So with you, Lisa.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me today. It's such an honor that Mali contacted me and then asked me to share my experience working with refugees. So today, as promised, I will share some methods and also probably ethical principles in working with refugee youths who are transiting in Indonesia. So that was my dissertations. So I will share screen right now. Yes. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so let's just move on to the first slide. Before I share about my PhD research, I would like to probably introduce myself to you through the research topic that becomes my interest so far. So I started actually studying child rights. So it's a study about the children and youth issues. That was my topic of interest. I did research about child laborers in some cities in Indonesia, also about the youth social engagement when I did my bachelor degree in anthropology in UGM, in Universitas Gadjah Mada, the university that I work in now. I wrote about the voluntarism and activism of the young generations of people in Freiburg in the southern Germany. At the time, I got a chance to do some student exchange, and I could conduct some qualitative research for about 2 months there. So I started with the fascinations about the children and youth's rights, and then I got the chance to continue my study in the University of Sydney. It was the Human Rights and Democratizations program, so it was not anthropology. I started to see, different angles of analyze things, and when I got a chance to do my semester in Thailand, I came across the issues of migrations and also the refugee studies that are quite a lot happening in Thailand. So at the time, I decided to write a master thesis about the children and young people who live inside the migrant workers communities, and they are all from Myanmar. So I don't put the Burmese migrant workers term here, because not only Burmese ethnic groups were working in Thailand, but also from Shan, from Mon, Shin, many ethnic groups from Myanmar that they're going to Thailand. Maybe they try to avoid the conflict first, but then they then becomes kind of like irregular migrant workers and stay in some cities in Thailand. I did 3 months kind of qualitative, yes, semi-ethnographic studies there. But then that was the first time that I then, being fascinated or encountered the issues of young people in the migrant settings. And through that connections as well, one of the lecturers in the university in Mahidol there contacted me because at the time she had a project, research project, researching on the unaccompanied minors and separated children in Southeast Asia, and she asked me to help her conducting research in Indonesia. And at first I thought that, unaccompanied minors and separated children from, international children who are in Indonesia, I thought that that would be children who are trafficked probably in the sex industry and so on. But then it turned out that most of the populations of unaccompanied minor and separated children are from refugees communities that are transiting in Indonesia. So this is the first time that I knew actually that there are asylum seekers and refugees who are staying temporary, quote unquote, in Indonesia. Because so far I never heard about any news or whatsoever about these populations, but through that particular research, then I understand the context of the conditions of the children, and that's why I also decided to focus on the refugee youths who are transiting Indonesia for my PhD dissertations. So just to give you some ideas, I don't know, probably Aquino already told you last week about some refugees and asylum seekers who are transiting in Indonesia. But here is the map, so you can probably see that most of the country of origins of people who are transiting in Indonesia seeking asylum are mostly from Afghanistan, from Hazara ethnic group. Some that directly come from Afghanistan to Indonesia, but many also have spent their transit times in Iran and Pakistan for years before they then decided to come to Indonesia to do the transit as well. Aside from that, we have also refugees coming from Somalia, from Ethiopia, Yemen, Sri Lanka, and also from Southeast Asian neighbors, from Myanmar, Rohingya refugees who are for long has been transited in Bangladesh as well. As that recently probably you will see on the news that are coming to Indonesia to seek for the protections as well. So here is the map of what is it? The immigration officer will say that this is kind of like smuggler's point of departure. I obtained this map also from the immigration officer. This is the traditional, what do you call, route, because previously the asylum seekers who are transiting Indonesia imagined that they will stay only weeks or maybe months before they will catch boats and they will try to make journey to Australia. You can see these 2 points here, Christmas Island and Ashmore Reef over here, the island over here. They're actually quite close to Indonesian islands, but administratively they are under Australian territory. So once the refugees arrive in Christmas Island or in Ashmore Reef, then ideally they hope that they can claim their asylums and try to register their refugee status with Australian government. But since 2013, Australian government also strict make the border policy on the sea become stricter, and they have this policy to turn back the boat to Indonesian border. If they are intercepted, then they will be placed either in Nauru detention center or in Papua New Guinea. This policy, these places has been closed down, but at the time of my research, there was still significant motivations for the refugees and asylum seekers to then decide that they will just stay longer in Indonesia, that they will just process their asylum within through UNHCR Indonesia, rather than to make themselves, intercepted by Australian marine or sent to very harsh detention center, so on. So with that decision, the populations of asylum seekers and refugees nowadays that are in Indonesia is about 12,000 persons now registered with UNHCR. You can see here that half of the populations are from Afghanistan, and then followed by Myanmar, Somalia, Iraq, and Yemen. And we can see here that the number of children and accompanied minors are still there. It's not like very high, but still hundreds of children are traveling without their parents or their guardians. And if you also heard about the news that this year, from January to December, we have almost 2,000 of Rohingya refugees travel from Bangladesh to Indonesian border, stranded in Aceh and North Sumatra. And this is also something that becomes the concern of UNHCR right now, because the local people previously are very welcoming, but now more and more discourse saying that local people doesn't want the Rohingya refugees to be transiting in that area. Okay, so in regard to this Rohingya cases, I visited the so-called Andaman crisis in 2015. At the time, in 2015, I came to Aceh and visited 3 big refugee camps, particularly only hosting Rohingyas, refugees, and also Bangladeshi migrants at the time. People are still welcoming at the time, and I wrote a piece in Kyoto Review. You can check about you can see more pictures in this link. I can share this link after this, but this is the short visit that I conduct before I did my full ethnographic research at the time, because again, similar to this situation, Andaman crisis was such a big phenomenon, right? That the traffic chain were refilled by police in Southeast Asia, so all eyes are really looking at this case, and I happened to came there, try to communicate with the humanitarian organizations there and also the local government. Many unaccompanied minors, girls and also boys, also in that groups. But I will say that the Rohingyas case is pretty unique compared to other journeys of asylum seekers and refugees who are transiting in Indonesia, because for these Rohingyas, they usually will accidentally transited in Indonesia when their boat probably you know, lost the fuel, etc. But there are many journeys that Indonesia is considered as the destination transit, sorry, yeah, transit destinations for the refugees and asylum seekers, particularly for the young generations. And I want to start looking at how I did my research, the PhD research in 2016 to 2017. So I did the research in 4 cities. I started in Cisarua for 6 months. It's over here. I hope that you can see it pretty clearly. This is in the mountainous area in West Java. This is Java Island. I don't know if you can see my cursor moving or not.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. From Cisarua, then I moved to Jakarta and I stayed there for 5 months. And from the story that I gathered from the refugee youth, then I decided that I need to go to Medan and Pekanbaru. I will tell about it more later, but this Cisarua and Jakarta were planned. So in my research proposal, I know that I will visit Cisarua and Jakarta, but the decision to go to Medan and Pekanbaru was actually newly developed when I was in the field, because I found the data and because I followed the stories of the young refugees. So before I continue and show you some pictures and methods that I use in each cities and its sites, I would like to mention a little bit about ethnography. I don't know if anyone has done any qualitative research or ethnography research before, and probably, you know a little bit already about what is ethnography. Yeah, can I have some, I don't know, hand raise or someone? Because I cannot see the whole room right now.
Sorry, I had to unmute in a different place.
Okay, sure.
We do design ethnography. There
Okay.
is a version of ethnography where we do it with design methods, and it's probably shorter. I think the word design means that it's for design. So, but I think, do you want to talk about your experience with ethnography? Come, you have to come. Come.
Hi.
Hey, hi.
Manaya. I don't have a lot of experience with ethnography, but in India, I was working to sort of tell the story of the fisherman community in one of the parts of Mumbai, which was going to. So currently, there's a coastal road project being built, which sort of spans part of the coast to convey one point of the Mumbai coast to another, so it like goes across. It's supposed to reduce traffic, but it really doesn't do that, and that's already evidenced by a very similar project earlier. And sort of what the construction does is really mess up the ecosystem of the sea, and then these local fishermen communities who actually fish sustainably in like the coastal shelf region, they are not able to practice their fishing trade, and they sort of get run out of livelihood, when actually these were the original people who were Mumbai's population. So I'd done an ethnographic study which spoke of sort of their story and how like these big infrastructure projects were sort of destroying their population and their cultures, because their younger generations were just merging into other mainstream cultures. They were not carrying on their own.
Oh, that's, yeah, sounds very interesting. ask you questions. Who were your main participants?
They were the fishermen and their families.
The fishermen. Okay. And how long you did the study?
I think this was about 3 months.
Okay.
Not very long.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. Thank you. Who is your name again?
Sorry. Anuya.
Anoya. Okay. Thank you so much, Anoya. Okay. Is anyone else want to share their experience or maybe understanding about the ethnography? Okay. Okay, maybe later, if there's. Okay. Yeah. Should I continue?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So in anthropology, we do ethnography a lot, right? So this is like one of the research methodology um, that, well, it's not like exclusively only done by anthropologists or sociologists or social scientists, obviously. But I think this is, yeah, maybe the characteristic of anthropology is doing some ethnography work. Here, Spratly mentioned that ethnography is the work of describing a culture, and we can have, like more discussion about what culture is, right? So with ethnography, anthropologists tell stories, build certain narrations about cultures, and it's including explanations, understanding, and interpreting. This is just, like general ideas that usually anthropologists use narrative to convey both story and theory, and also by doing that, documenting and interpreting wide range of way of life. So it's not only, from observing and then you explain, but also in the process, you are invited to also interpret your understanding, your perspective on the data that you gain in the field as well. And here, I hope you can see clearly. Yeah. So it's from the function, the term ethnography can be used in a multiple meanings, right? It has multiple meanings because it has multiple functions. Ethnography as a research methods that I just mentioned is part of the qualitative research methodology, usually through in-depth study. To say it simplistically, usually a researcher will come to a particular group of people in a society, or maybe particular ethnic groups, for the conventional ethnographer to come and live in the society with the people there, to understand their behavior, their daily activities, what they're saying, the routines that they do every day, what kind of conversations that they have, what things that are matter for them in daily basis, and they will usually stay in 1 year. One professor with a rural study background saying that, well, it's important to stay in the field for 1 full year in a rural research, in the rural studies, because then you can see the full cycle of 1 year. If you want to look at the farmer, or if you want to look at the what is it, fishermen, for example, you will see that, probably in the different season they will have different rituals, or maybe different I don't know, social gatherings, or maybe social events, or maybe something that important to be noted. So conventionally, people will try to do ethnographic study at least for 1 year. Although now, of course, with with technology and stuff like that, people also manage to do it for 6 months, or sometimes, with a limited budget, people only can do it for 3 months. But the idea is to live with the person that is being researched, living with the participants, trying to understand their life from their perspective. So that was probably the core ideas of doing ethnography. And then as a type of data, the ethnographic data means that usually it's like narrations from the observations or participant observations that people conducted through conversations as well, or maybe in the form of vignettes, can be quotations of statements, can be photographs or videos as well. So all the data that are gathered with the ethnography studies also can be said as ethnographic data. And ethnography also means writing product. And what makes it different, the ethnographic writing with the other narrative writings, is that what Clifford Kurtz said as thick description. So thick description is the narration or the descriptions of the conditions of culture and societies that include the interpretations and also critical analysis from the author, and reflecting the perspective of both the researcher and also the participants of the research. So it's not only the analysis from one side, but also that it will have conversations between what the people in the field say and how will you interpret what people say in the field. So we can have like more discussion about that, but that's just some general informations about the ethnography. Also, but the positionality of the researchers is important in ethnography because probably like in other discipline, scholars will try to be very objective and stuff like that. But in ethnography and anthropology, we understand that subjectivity is important, that we also take responsible as researcher to say that this is our perspective and this positionality is because everything that becomes our identity as a researcher. Okay, so let's go back to my research field. So first, like I said, I started by doing research in Cisarua, and when entering the field, I contacted the manager of one learning center in Cisarua called Cisarua Refugee Learning Center. They have a very fancy Facebook at the time, a lot of activities that they post on Facebook, their Facebook pages, and they're openly showing their activities for the public. And I reached them through Facebook Messenger, contacting their manager, saying that, hey, I want to come to your school in Cisarua, and I want to do research because I am interested to study about the children and young people in the refugee communities in Indonesia, and I'm wondering if I also can help you with anything, becoming volunteer, probably teaching Bahasa Indonesia or things like that. So then we agreed to make arrangement that I will stay with one refugee families while I'm doing volunteering work in this school. So that was my the first entering the field again after my research in 2012. And at that time, I was already married, but I traveled alone as a young woman in this community. The refugee families were pretty protective of me, so I cannot go out and then return home too late, and they will be really worried if I will be traveling alone. So then I decided that my partner, that my husband, will join me in the second month, and my husband is a photographer, and he agrees to help me with the field work as well. So we then staying in the field for the rest of my field work in Tisarwa, and we stay with the refugee youths. We share a house with two refugee youth at first, but then only one because the other one was like moved to other places. So in total, I stayed for 6 months in Cisarua, 1 month with refugee family and 5 months with the refugee young people there. And in Cisarua, in the morning, I will do some volunteering work in the school, and in the afternoon till evening, I will go and meet young people and other people as well in the refugee community. Okay, so the sites that I visited while I was in Cisarua was like refugee schools, refugee houses. I went to markets, sports centers where the youths also spend their times, football clubs, karate clubs, gyms, community centers, also public places. And the research methods that I did here, I was able to do participant observations, obviously in the schools and also the house. Then I did like a lot of casual conversations with mothers, with fathers, with young people, elderly people from the refugee communities there. So I tried to get like a lot of perspective about their conditions in Indonesia. I did interviews. Most of the interviews were not recorded, but sometimes I also do some sit-in interviews with refugee youths, and at the time I will do the recording if they agree to do that. I did volunteering, also actor mappings, photography workshops with my husband, and the result of this photography workshop were one photo exhibitions that I did in the University of Indonesia in Jakarta. So this is some pictures, the activities of the learning centers. This is when one teacher read the story and the students were asked to imagine what happened in that story. So you can see that the curriculum in the school is actually also quite advanced and quite open as well for all refugees. I join their cooking and gathering events, cooking together, or maybe also attending some sport activities that they engage in. You can see here that a lot of diets are carbs because they try to cut some expenses. In the fact sheet from the UNHCR, you can see earlier that most of the refugees who are in Indonesia are not funded, so they have to rely on their own saving or rely on other family members in other countries to send money to them. So this is some pictures, some photography workshops, and this is the poster that the refugee youth made themselves from their pictures, depicting the life, the everyday life of themselves, and they also made the concept and also the design of the photo exhibitions themselves. Okay, so from Cisarua, then I moved to Jakarta, and in Jakarta I visited these sites. There are minor shelters under CWS, the Church World Service. I also visited immigration detention centers, IOM community housings, refugee houses, public places, and university. And in here, I could not live with the refugee youth, so I rented a room in Jakarta, and I came to the shelter every day since probably starting from 9 to or around 9 or 10 a.m. and I will leave the shelter around 5 p.m. every day. So I was able to observe their daily activities inside the shelter, but I'm not allowed to spend night in the shelter because obviously this is shelter under the humanitarian organization, so they have like quite strict policy as well. And in Kalideres Immigration Detention Center, I only was able to visit a couple of times, and I could not make any pictures. But I was allowed to talk with some of the refugee youth who were detained there, but I could not choose who I should talk to. So they just, just bring me to like one meeting room, and they will come out and say that, oh, this boy or like under 18 years old. So if you want to ask his experience, you can do it here, etc., etc. So I also visited IOM community housing. So this is the like a rented house, but paid by IOM. So refugees are staying in urban area in Jakarta. They're quite freely to move out, but they will have curfew. They have to go back to their housing around 9 p.m. every day. And in refugee houses, this is more free because they pay their own rent, so they're not under any humanitarian organization. So in a sense, there was no like strict rules on their movements every day. I also went to university, public places to meet the refugee youth while they have activities in that place. So this is the methods, a bit similar to what I did in Cisarua, except the participant observations. And I did like one music collaborations with University of Indonesians lecturers and students because I happened to meet some Oromo young people in the shelter, but then they kind of like overage. They're already 18 years old, so they have to go out from the shelter and live independently. And some of them, they told me that they want to be a rapper. They started like making lyrics and music, and they went to local studio and tried to make recording. So because I know like some scholars in University of Indonesia are also some musicians in the Department of Anthropology, so I make the connections. And you can read in the article that I shared with you about the collaborations, and I think it was a very fruitful collaborations that the young refugees then find their confidence again, because they also can sing in some events also conducted by held by UNHCR as well. So this is some pictures. This is inside the shelters. You can see like in one room they will share like bunk beds like this. I think maybe 8 to 10 people per room. And they will cook and also eat together in groups so that they can cut some costs as well. They also went for sports, and in here is the Oromo young people that I talk about, and they're pretty expressive, and I think they produce almost 10 songs, if I'm not mistaken. Some songs was about the journey from Ethiopia to Jakarta, but other songs are also like romantic songs about meeting Indonesian girls in train station and stuff like that. So I think it's very interesting, collaborations that they made together. Okay, so this is also in Jakarta when their money run out. Many refugee communities, they will do self-reporting in front of UNHCR or maybe in front of detention center with the hope that they will be detained or maybe they will get some housings from humanitarian organizations. Since 2018, the availability of the humanitarian funding was really limited. So it's very difficult for the refugees in Indonesia now to find financial support, and they're not allowed to work, so it becomes very challenging for them. The picture in the right hand side is when they do some protests, because resettlement goes very slow, and the single male will be considered as the least vulnerable groups, so they will get the resettlement chance very last, and this is the way that they try to demand the rights by saying that resettlement is actually our absolute rights. This is the illustrations of what is inside the immigration detention center. This is not in Jakarta, this is actually in Makassar. This picture is taken when I made like a short visit in 2012, just to give some ideas. Immigration detention center in Jakarta is more crowded than this, but just to give some ideas on how people really cannot move outside. Okay, so I follow the young people's activities every day, their mobility, their daily movements, but I also follow their stories. And most of the young people told me that they're entering Indonesia, probably 80% of them told me that they're entering Indonesia not by going to the Jakarta airport directly, but they will go to Malaysia first, and then from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, they will make some trip to, they will call it like a swamp, or like a little forest or something like that, and they will catch a boat. They will ride a boat for 4 hours before they arrive in Medan or Pekanbaru, and that's why I think that it's important to visit Medan and Pekanbaru, because I want to understand why some refugee youths decided to stay in Medan in Jakarta while other youths continue their journey to Jakarta. So then I made short visit, probably 3 weeks of research, interviews and observations in Medan with these sites. I visited Belawan Immigration Detention Center. I also visited minor shelters under IOM, the Department of Social Affairs, IOM community housings, and also public places. And in this, I met, some refugees, from Rohingya refugees who got married and then have families when they were in Medan. I also visited like one shelter that were specifically for Somalia, well, not specifically for Somalia, but for women and children, because their husband were still inside the detention center. So the policy said that vulnerable groups can stay outside the detention center. So the women and the children were outside the detention center, but their family, their husband still have to stay inside the detention center. And this is, I think, the practice that really sad but interesting, because the immigration office, they did not consider the family unifications much in this place. Currently, there were no one still staying inside the detention center, because IOM got the budget, so Indonesian immigration officer decided that everyone must go out from the detention center. So only self-settled refugees and only those who are staying under the human rights organizations are the kind of housing that they have. So in Pekanbaru, I visit the point of arrival young refugees. The sites were open IDC. I said open because they have like very interesting policy that allows refugees to go out from the detention center from 9 to 7, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 5 p.m. And when I asked the officer if they're not afraid if the refugee will run away, the officer said that no, it's okay if they want to if they don't want to go back, it's also fine with us, because we're sure that I think they need some place to stay, and also to have some support, to have some meals and etc. So this is the practice that I only witnessed in Pekanbaru and not witnessed in other cities. But it's yeah, it's pretty interesting. And then also visit the immigration office. I am community housings and hangout places. For the few weeks visit, I managed to conduct some interviews, and in here mostly I did the recorded group interviews, because when I come to the community housings, then I don't have enough time to interview one by one and like make quite close connections with each of them. So in this particular city, I usually will do the group interviews with the young refugees to talk about the issues that I have identified before. But I also still do some multi-actor mappings as well. So from the stories, I gather the data, and also their refugee journey, their arrival journey, and I try to draw the pictures of map while they're coming to Indonesia. And there are a lot of varieties, of course, depend on the availability of flights, and also the cost of the transporter that they can pay. So it will affect their mode of transportations. If they can pay quite a lot of money, then probably the journey will be more comfortable. But if not, then maybe the journey will involve some boat crossing, and also the buses journey as well. But this is one of the examples that I want to show you how I put the refugee narratives, or refugee stories into the something that is more like observable. This is the picture of the IOM community housings in Pekanbaru, with the common kitchen. And still, when I was there, still many people did not get the accommodation, so they have to sleep in front of the immigration office. When it's raining, they will try to get to houses or places around. When it's not raining, then they will open their small tent again like this, and just wait for the immigrations to record them. I managed to meet some of the refugee artists in Pekanbaru as well. Quite a lot, actually, not only in Pekanbaru but also other cities, that they have like art talents as well. And probably Akino also already discussed with you how to collaborate with the refugee young people artistically, because they also have like a lot of skills and also talents. So let's talk about the multi-sided ethnography. So I shared with you like one article from George Marcus, and this probably is not like very easy to read that, but I think it's important to understand how it arrives. Maybe for now in 2024, multi-sided ethnography is not something new, but in 1995 it was something that was not conventional, right? So multi-sided ethnography is not only about the multiple geographical locations. I already show you that my research was in 4 cities, and in city I visited like multi-locations or sites. But actually, it's not only the characteristic of the multi-sided ethnography. It's not only about the geographical locations, but also how the data that you got from different sites or different places is analyzed or is formed to help you to have one big pictures to answer your research questions or to develop your project. Multi-site ethnography different from, for example, comparative studies. You don't go to the field to the multiple locations and try to compare them, trying to analyze them individually, but you want to make the full complete story or full complete picture of what you do. That's why a lot of the following methods involved in the multi-sided ethnography. You can follow the people, you can follow the goods or stuff, you can follow the conflicts, you can follow the metaphor. And in my case, I follow the youths, and also I follow the youth stories to understand their journey and also their experience while they are transiting in Indonesia. By opening up the term site to a range of meanings beyond that of a mere geographical locations, a site could be an archive, media, or geographically dispersed population of practitioners. Multi-sidedness also allowed those who engage fully with the experimental potential of the methods to craft self-consciously innovative and unconventional anthropological projects. So you can see here that in my case, then the multi-sidedness also involved that is not only traditional qualitative research methods, but I try to also modify it with the action research through some art collaborations, through photography projects, and I did some exhibitions, try to identify the skill and potential of the refugee youths, and probably also linked it to people who also have means and skills that will help the refugee youths to grow, and also do some collaborative research paper, for example, or maybe collaborative projects that involve the refugee youths themselves. So we can talk more about that in the discussion, and I hope I still have some time. I would like to briefly mention about the ethical principle in ethnographic research.
You have about 20 minutes, if that's okay?
Okay. Yes, I only have like 3 slides left.
Yeah, after 20 minutes we could have some time for questions.
Yes, okay. So ethical principle in ethnography research, the most important thing is that you should avoiding any harms that will because of your research or your research output to your participants. So you have to protect the identity and also the well-being of your participants, and of course the well-being means that it's not only physical but also psychological as well. So we also have to carefully and respectfully negotiating the limits of the relationship between researchers and those being researched. I will say that I'm quite an emotional researcher, so sometimes when I make connections with people in the field, I will try to be friended, to be friends with them, etc. But sometimes I also forgot that people probably will not see me as as easily as being their friends, right? Because I'm a researcher going to the field, and they know that I need to collect some data, meaning that I have some goals in mind. And sometimes people also try to negotiate the way to survive as well. For example, that they will request something that probably will be quite tough for me, and I will probably feeling a bit gloomy, because then I really want to make friends, but then there's some demands that I cannot meet and stuff like that. So I think doing ethical principle is to not doing harm to people that you are you know, doing research with, but also how you also can maintain your physical and physiological well-being as well. And in here, there is some point about that you should avoid ethnocentricity. That it that if you go to some field and you see that there are some conflicts, for example, it's also important to cover the phenomenon from the multi-perspective, not only from one that probably close to you. And this is also something that is pretty challenging at times for researcher, but ethically you should give some space for people who you meet in the field to convey their ideas as well. They should not normally deceive their subject without good reason, nor should they knowingly misinterpret, fabricate evidence, falsify, plagiarize, or attempt to prevent the reporting of misconduct, obstruct the scientific scholarly research of others, etc. And there is obligation to make use of the result of their work in appropriate fashion. Individual researcher may choose to move beyond disseminating research results to a position of advocacy and on behalf of their subject. So it's okay to move beyond only this disseminating research result as research report, but then you can do more on the advocacy for the subjects. Dissemination and reporting of research finding must be done with a view to the basic principle of beneficence and non-maleficence. This is just simple guidelines that I usually share with my students. The first, you have to consider the informant first. Of course, it's about their well-being, their safety, safeguard informant's rights, interests, and sensitivities, and then you need to communicate research objectives. And this is has to be done in the beginning, so that they can choose whether they want to participate in the project or not. And then we need to protect the privacy of the informants, and we should not exploit informants, and also to make reports or the products available to informants. Okay, and this is consent and assent. There are a lot of kind of consents. Usually in the scientific research, we are asked to provide the informed consent, and usually it should be signed in the paper and stuff like that. I did that with the officials when I did interview with the officials in the field, but with the youths, usually they will be really cautious of signing anything, particularly because their legal status as refugees. So usually I will read to them what are their rights and how they can always stop the interview at any time when they want it, stuff like that. So so they will know the rights that they have if they choose to be participating in the research. And while doing that, I will try to record so that I will get the record that they agree that they will participate without signing any documents and stuff like that. And with the researching children or those who are under 18 years old, usually aside from getting consent from their guardian or parents, I usually will always check again with the children if they would like, if they're happy to be participating in my study, if they're willing to talk to me about their experience, stuff like that. So for the children, it's more complicated because you will have to get the consent from their guardians and the assent. But I think that is important because we don't want the children to do something that they don't really like, right? Because maybe they will, well, in the in Indonesian culture, the children are quite hesitant to say no, so it's important to always check again if that's something that they really want. Okay, and the last slide from me is about the researcher positionality, and I think this is something that it's important to be reflected, whether we want to do the ethnographic research or we want to make a project, because we need to acknowledge our identity, gender identity, social background, I don't know, maybe ethnic or religions, the academics and stuff like that, that it will affect how the participants will welcome us or will perceive us. For example, like midway in my research, I was pregnant, and when my belly showing at the time, I felt that I got like more empathy or probably like sympathy from people around me, even my participants or informants, and that probably in a way will help me to get like easier access, even going inside to the immigration detention center, for example. And that will be different if I'm a male, not pregnant, single, and with all the physical appearance that maybe more threatening, quote unquote, then probably immigration detention center will not allow that person to come inside the detention center. So this kind of things is important to acknowledge and mention, that it also can be debated as well, right? Like we should not use our gender identity to gain access in the field, but sometimes something like that is not, although it's not intentionally, but that happens. So I think that's also something to be reflected on, so that we can have like more, reflective, inclusive project or research. I think that's it. I'm I'm looking forward to have like your opinions on my research project, or probably if you have some comments or questions, I will be very happy to answer it. And back to you, Malik.
Hi, thank you, Lisa. For sharing your experience doing field work with refugees. I'm gonna open the floor for questions, but first I have two questions. Thinking practically about the project of the students are about or are working in, they are not gonna have the chance because a lack of access to do ethnography with refugees. We are using two organizations as proxy, and the organizations are coming to talk to us next Thursday. Do you have experience kind of what questions are relevant to us? What will be the advice? The sessions are going to be an informal chat with the proxies organizations. One proxy organization is called Rebook, and they work with teens and young people. And the other organization is a local authority that provide services to refugees in the borough, in their locality. And they both gonna come, and I was thinking, given that we cannot do ethnography, what sort of relevant questions as how or tricks from your specialty that they can ask. And then I have another question, but let's start with that one.
Okay, thank you so much, Molly. I think that's a very challenging questions. I'm trying to imagine the context of these organizations. So if I'm not mistaken, you guys are trying to make a project connecting the refugees in London with these organizations. Am I correct?
Yeah, the students are designing sessions from the Transition Living Lab. Remember our idea of the Transition Living Lab? So we have teams, and each team is building a building block or a session for that course. And they will test the session or the intervention with the participants' refugees, but before the encounter, they're not going to have access to do ethnography with the participants. The organizations are going to come twice. once is this week to introduce the context and so on, and then they're gonna come to see for a crit. I don't know if you're familiar with that method, but they're gonna come to see their ideas halfway through. And I was thinking, in the list of methods that you list, you have something called actor mapping. Would you want to give us some example of how to do it? Because maybe this is something that we can do with the proxy organizations, that we're going to be asking questions, and maybe something that we can do in the studio with the organization. I don't know how you or what.
Okay. Okay, let me start with discussing about this actor mapping stuff. So there are actually two kind of mappings, like in ethnographic studies. Working with children, I usually will do the me mapping thing. So from the perspective of the children, we can facilitate them to draw kind of like pictures, or maybe like tables or something like that, and they can identify themselves who are the significant actors around them. That will be from their own ideas and perspective of who are the significant actors around them. But we, as the researcher, when we are going to the field, we also have the the ability or the sensitivity to see who are the main actors playing in this field, right? So the refugees, even inside the refugees themselves, there will be like the power relations within, for example, youth and maybe the teachers, or maybe youth and with the parents, or maybe there's some religious leaders that are still there. And how is the power relations between the refugee youths, like the male and female, women and men refugees in the community, and how and that can be seen actually. Usually in my methods will be from observations, and interact with them like daily. But if you don't have that chance, then you can also ask them to also tell you the story of how that organization's established, like who are the actors behind that, who are the managers, who are the organizers who are involved in this kind of activities, and who get to say what, like how, and you also can try to probably also see the power relations between that. But I don't know if these organizations also involve refugees communities or not, or how they look at the refugees in their activities. Are they only like beneficiaries, or also part of
Is this a question?
Yeah. Yes.
There are two very different organizations. One is an NGO, and they support refugees that have been given asylum in a holistic way, like informing where they can get access to legal support, housing support, education, psychological support, but they are like kind of a hub before they access all of those things. And the other organization is an organization that gave services to all the citizens of the local area. But once the refugees have been given asylum, they also need to claim housing benefits, school, medical services, and all of that. So they have a sections of these organizations that work only with the refugees, but they are part of the community. One organization, the local authority, is working with the people in their physical community, while Revoke, they work with teams. They don't necessarily belong to the same physical community. They are probably based in London, and they go to that center. So there are very two different contexts.
Okay. Probably like one question is that I have in mind now is like how much participations that they give to the refugee communities to also be involved as organizer in this in these activities or organizations. Do they also see refugees as beneficiaries, or is there any kind of attempts to involve the refugee communities more, to give, I don't know, to give them suggestion, for example, that, like this process it probably should be done like this because it's more culturally appropriate for us, or maybe even involve them not only as interpreter but also as like one of the staff in that organizations, or what kind of space that they provide for the refugees except as beneficiaries.
Well,
probably that will be.
I currently don't know, but I guess that's a very good question to ask them on Thursday.
Yeah.
So I hope you guys take notes. But yeah, if there are other useful, like when your experience, I imagine before you arrive to the field, you will have to access these organizations, and maybe you could give us 1 or 2 tricks of how to lead conversation, what would useful information we should know, and all of that.
Yeah. So researching refugees in Indonesia, actually, I need to contact like a lot of authorities and organizations, right? I need to get permissions for example, like Directorate General of Immigrations, that like Indonesian government. So I need to send like a really formal letter with like proposals and stuff like that. And I also have to send emails to UNHCR and IOM, notify them that I will do this. I cannot do the research inside the IOM community housing if I don't get the permissions from the immigration. Yeah, immigration.
It's the same here. So we didn't get any permissions.
Yes.
And that's why we have to work with these process organizations.
Yes.
That on top are very poor in capacity and time. So for them to engage with us is also taking their time for actually doing the work. So for them it's like a massive investment to do the collaboration with us. So that's why we have these punctual points where we're gonna meet them, and what I want is that we are prepared to take the most useful information as possible. So doing research, ethnographic research through them almost.
Yes. That's why my approach is to enter with the refugee learning centers, because this is like refugee-led organizations, refugee-led initiative, and they're not under any humanitarian organizations, right? So they're kind of like self-funded. Well, they raise money from international communities, and now after CRLC, I think maybe 5 other refugee schools then established as well in Cisarua and Jakarta, following the same pattern. So I think because the nature is that they're not under any humanitarian organization, it's like easier to approach, and they have their own power to say who they will accept and who not. So it's I think that's a really strategy.
So that would be an organization similar or to the organization Revoke. I don't know how much refugee-led it is, but I know that at least all the people that run it are migrants, and I think they were refugees at some point. So
And probably I would like to mention something like this is also like self-criticism for myself, that like a lot of studies about refugees in Indonesia are focusing on the Hazara ethnic groups because they are like the majority of the refugee populations. But I will say that it will be great if you also can look at the refugee communities that are not from the majority as well, because they're usually they also have like a lot of ideas, stories, creative things, but they just people just don't know how to access them, right? Because their number are small, so maybe they don't get to have any chance to do some initiative compared to if the refugee communities are
so I
members.
Guess that's another important question, no? To learn about the amount of people from each nationality, majorities and minorities, languages, religions, cultural backgrounds. The last question from me, and then I open it to the floor, is going back a little bit to that framework of ethics and the principles that you refer. I would like to see, I don't know if you have examples, but I think principle 2 or 3 was about taking care of our own well-being, psychological and physical well-being. Do you have one tricks of how to do that actually in practice? How do you know that you're not well? How do you deal with that in the moment, so before or after? Or maybe
Well,
an
actually,
example from your own experience. I
Yeah.
also imagine you pregnant in the middle of all of
Yeah.
this, so I cannot imagine how emotional you were. So maybe you
Yeah.
have one or two stories to tell us about how do you, or how one does that check-in.
Yes. So actually, the point that I mentioned was not inside the guidelines. So this is like the reflections that I had for myself, because I think doing ethical research is not only for the participants, but you also have to involve yourself as researcher. My trick was that I need to take a break once in a while to stay away from the field, because doing ethnographic research is really tiring. I did like 14 months of field work, and I almost don't have any privacy, right? Because I live with the participants, I live with the people in the field, and sometimes when you type something and they know that you're typing about them, it's not it's not nice as well. I mean, they will see that that kind of like power relations between researcher and participants are always there, and also that you don't have a lot of time for yourself, to take care of yourself, just to enjoy ice cream or anything, or just to talk something that is not about field work. So in my approach, I usually will take regular, probably like every 2 weeks, or maybe if you need it, even every weekend, going to like small trips, go away from the site. So just maybe spend a couple of maybe just one night, or 2 days, just doing some relaxing and then going back again. But this is something that even in academia is not yet taken into something serious. So in University of Amsterdam, when I did my PhD, we started to have what is it called? Like something like care after the field. So for the PhD students, after going back from the field, then we regularly will meet, like maybe 5 or 6 students, and we will just share anything. Like, for example, as a woman, usually you will get probably some I don't know, maybe sexual or verbal abuse that is not intentionally, but you will feel it, and you feel not really ease about that, and you can share it freely with your friends, and just just to check in if I don't feel very good about this, is it like normal, or if it's so it's like to have this support group is very important. That was my experience. And also, I think it's okay to have some distance after you're going back from the field. I took like a couple of months not opening Facebook, not opening anything, because then it will bring back all the feelings and emotions, and that and the realizations that I actually didn't do something much for them, but I actually kind of like feel guilty, because in a way I kind of like exploit them by taking data or whatever, but I don't really give back something. So I need to take care of myself emotionally for a while, and then after that I can communicate with them again. So it's I think to have some groups to talk to, I think it's very good. And because you're in a class, you have friends as well who also face the similar project. I think it's always good to just reflect what you feel and what you experience while you're doing the research project.
Great, thank you. I'm glad that I when I study cultural studies and anthropology, my tutors call it touch home or going home. And when we were in the field, they will ask us to even to call if we can once a week, or go home physically if we could, and meet them and talk to other people. Because we are not in the field, but we're trying to absorb as much information as we can. I also think that could be triggering or emotional, and what we're doing in class is like a sharing circle that meant to be emotional and spiritual and political support to talk about these issues. So this is the way that we are doing it. But yeah, I wanted to. So I think we are in the more or less in the same way. I'm glad that you talk about this feeling of guilt, because I felt it when I do field work, but I had never read it. It's interesting that you mentioned it. It's a strong feeling of guilt when you left the field, because you also develop relationships, you develop vincles, you develop an emotional thing, and then your project finish, and that's it. But you know that the life continue in that place. So I know that our students are not gonna be living in the field, but you're gonna be thinking about that for a while, and finally having a session with your participants, and then you're gonna finish your project. So it's about how we deal with these emotions and be upfront that this is happening, even to the most professional people and people to do this in PhD levels and so on. I'm gonna open the floor now, so if someone wants to have a question, you can come to the front and tell the name first, so Lisa knows who's coming.
Just like a small notes on that, there is like interesting books by Ruth Behar called Vulnerable Observer that maybe you want to check. Like the psychological, emotions and stuff as researchers in the field. Maybe.
Will you send us a name so I can put it in the
Sure.
information for the students?
Yes. Okay.
Hello. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the talk. It was very informative. My name is Amrita. I'm doing MA Design Management. So actually, I had a question about something that I was thinking a lot about recently. It's also a question for Dr. Malay. You know, we from our positions, like when we attend a course or an intervention, there is a interest in participation, right? So right now we discussed that the people that we are going to be working with, how do we gauge what is the area, like when we pick a course, we know that that is the topic or that is the area or that is a skill we want to develop. So right now, how do we understand whether sort of the refugees who are sort of our participants, whether this is the area or this is the skill that they would want to learn? Are we just sort of forcing our ideals on them, or because we don't get the chance to do the ethnographic research or sort of understand their experience and from that learn what would be the most ideal or their area of interest, right? So how do we accommodate that in our design process and you know, like not feel like we are parachuting in fact, because we are making assumptions when we design. So I don't know. I don't know whether that's a complicated question. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. That's very interesting questions. Very important one too. Yeah.
That's a complicated question, and it's a question that I myself ask as well. I think maybe this is something also to ask to the organizations when they come. And at the moment, because the brief is as it is, we need to assume that, but maybe this is something that you can integrate in your session and see if at the end this is something that people would be interested to follow. This is what you do. What you're designing is a test question, and maybe the people have to test it before knowing if they wanted to keep doing it or not. So maybe what I suggest is that in your intervention or in your session, it would be a moment where you gauge that to have a result from. I mean, what we're thinking about this as an action research. You're gonna do an action at the same time that you're researching. So to have that as outcomes or part of your outcomes of your action research would be very interesting. No, definitely these people are not interested in doing this. Or these people really want to do this in this way or apply it to this domain. They want to do innovations or entrepreneurships or artistic things or something for the community or something about food or some, actually engage in that. I think maybe I put it as part of your interest thing.
Okay.
That would be my answer. I don't know if this I have another answer.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, like in general, like in ethnography, usually we will try to, even in theory, we call it, we like to do the grounded theory, meaning that we will create theory based on what we found in the field, right? And I understand, like in such like different setting, it's also difficult to get like the whole bottom up design that like everyone wants. So I think I agree that sometimes you also need to do back and forth. I don't know, like now with the technology, with a lot of information is available, we also can utilize the secondary data, not only the data that we get from the person interview or maybe observations directly, but we also can use the reports that has been published by other people. So we utilize that, maybe previous research, or maybe some data from the internet, or maybe anything that we can find on that topics as the secondary data to help us when we create or we design something. And then we invite people that probably haven't encountered and don't have any experience in that project, right? But I think that's important too, because when you ask someone what do you want, maybe they will tell you something that they already want or they already experienced. But when you offer something new, then they will then have some stimulations as well, and they will try and see that, oh wait, I've never thought about that before, and this is fun. I think maybe I will join in next time, but maybe if there is some rooms to grow, I will add something for the next project, right? Sorry. So I think it's important to also have this feedback mechanism when you do the project. So I think it's like back and forth, like it's you can utilize like multi data that you get and test it and see how it fits their needs.
I think also to complete, most or part of the grounded theory process that Lisa is doing have been done by the RTN project.
Okay.
So we've been engaging with a lot of organizations working with refugees. We have partners, and we are getting into this point where we brought you in.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that it's totally true, and also this is a very contextual research.
Yeah.
Maybe that your context is going to be different to the context that we've been talking to. So we have that tensions there. But with vulnerable communities and particularly refugees, I think there is a tension there that if you ask what do you want, they will tell you, I want my passport, I want my housing benefits, I want a job. So what we're offering is a space to think beyond that.
Yeah.
Okay, once we have not our workshop is not the possibilities to grant you a passport, but we can grant you some skills, some spaces to think beyond that.
Okay.
And this is maybe what we can provide with our sessions. Not just what you need or what you want immediate, but what if?
Yeah.
That possibility of seeing beyond, of planning in the future, of that immediate necessity that is so immediate and so important, that kind of make your life very, very short. If you're only thinking about how do I gonna get to tonight's dinner, how do I gonna get to eat tonight, that it closes a lot of your work. So I think part of the objectives of this session is bring that space, open that space, to have that space, to think differently. And maybe it's that we are all grown and the people really don't want to do this at all, but that will be part of your research.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions.
Hi, I'm Sakshi.
Hello.
I had a question about affordances. You said you go and live with people in the field, and that
Mhm.
usually, because you're an emotional researcher, you try to be friends with them because that's just how you function. But
Mhm.
when you are living with them, it's about your own affordances will allow you a better way to take care of yourself, right? And these are not luxuries that I'm talking about. I'm just talking about your basic needs that you fulfill through just better products and better things that you have for your own health and for your own hygiene even. But when you're living in that sort of an atmosphere where they probably can't afford these things, how do you then not let those things that you need for yourself create further divide between you and them? But also like
Mhm.
not let go of these things because you need them for yourself, and yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you so much. I think this is yeah, this is a important questions in the methods that we don't talk much even in UKM, because usually the students in anthropology have this mindset of our ideas that we have to try to follow the lifestyle of the participants that we are living in, right? So like a lot of compromising mindset that we have, because we know that we don't want to burden the person that probably that, yeah, for example, they only have 2 rooms and they have 3 children, so we have to share like one room with 2 children in that house and stuff like that. Is obviously not ideal for us, but that's what they have, and they open their house for us. So like yeah, in general, I will say that anthropologists will try to do like a lot of accommodating and like compromising to live in that way. But then again, we have to see what is our limit, because I cannot speak to everyone, because everyone has their own limit, and this is not only about the hygiene, it's not only about the standard of living, but also about the values, sometimes also about the religion. Like in Indonesia, for example, like if Muslim researchers have to go to like ethnic groups that they drinks as part of their gathering, or maybe they have to eat pork and stuff like that. They decide their own boundaries, right? They decide their own limits, which part that they want to participate and which part they have to say no. And diet is something that is very um, difficult, right? Because we we don't want to make like extra burden for the people that we live with, but sometimes we cannot function if we have to eat something that we don't like for 2 weeks. So yeah, so I think the key is the art of balancing. One, you know that you have to compromise, when the other one, you try to find a way. Like for example, my husband has to eat rice every day, and when we live in this Afghan community, we ate bread, right? Like we ate naan as in breakfast or lunch and stuff like that. For me, I'm fine with that, because as long as I'm not hungry, I can function. But my husband cannot do that, because I eat rice. So every once in a while, usually he will excuse himself and say that, oh, I have meeting and stuff like that, and then he will go out and just eat in a some food stall nearby or something like that. So nasi. So it's yeah. So it's something like that I think yeah, I think as long as you don't cause your host um, very expensive I don't know, electricity bill or something like that, or maybe you can compromise with that too, right? So for example, that they don't use electricity because they don't want to pay like a lot. You can always compromise by saying that, hey, I want to contribute, but can I use electricity from this time. Yeah, so I think the communications is the key, and in this kind of process, actually, it's not only researcher who study the participants, right? But the participants also learn something, also grow with the arrival of the researcher. So I think this kind of communication is also yeah, I will say the beneficial for them too. And in any project or in any research, the key is also not to do the what's it hit and run. So it's not only like, you know, small encounter and then you only think about what you need, but also always try to think the other way around, like this is like the two-way street, that what the participant will benefits when you work there and stuff like that. Because when they also think that they get something from you, then it's also more chances that they're open for compromising this with this kind of like little stuff, right?
I think
Yeah.
bringing this lesson that's very important to our project. I think we have to make a reflection of how we present ourselves when we go into these organizations. How we even talk, or yeah, how we present ourselves. I think that's important.
Hello.
Hi.
Sorry, I was just looking for the